So you're taking a firmly descriptivist stance on this.
Yes, yeah. I'm
going to say that again. Let's begin.
Okay, this bit I may cut out, but I need to complain, Bill. I have to. I just need to get this off my chest because no one else understands, and I just need to talk. So the video before last was fantasy maps and plate tectonics, the tutorial where I did like a screen share thing and show people my workflow for making the maps I make.
Yeah.
And it was an 18-minute long tutorial, right, on using software. And so many responses were of the form, why do you use a Mac? Like, no sort of like discussion about the content of the video, just kind of like, oh, I seen that it's a Mac, everything's invalid, I need to argue with him about this. And I just need to complain, and I just need to get it off my chest, and then we can proceed with a normal show. I am so sick of the PC master race versus the Apple elitist snobs thing. It's just such a redundant argument that like has no purpose whatsoever other than it's like this socially acceptable form of xenophobia. It's just like, it infuriates me so much. And anyway, so the particular case that I want to bring up is that this person, I'll keep this person nameless, even though they did publicly comment. They wrote, why do you use a Mac? And I replied and was like, well, I used Windows throughout my entire childhood. Then I got to university and there was Macs in the media room. And I really liked it, so I decided to get my own. And for me, it was just a much better experience. I admit that they are not perfect, and I very often have a lot of gripes with what Apple do and what they release. So I was trying to meet the person halfway, not to be all like, I'm the sheep. I love Mac unequivocally. I'm kind of like, there's problems with everything, man. Like
you were trying to be reasonable about it.
I was trying to be reasonable about it, right? And then the person ignores that and just goes, and then starts on a big tirade about how awful Macs are and how like everything's wrong, the UI is wrong, the placement of like the functionality is all entire wrong, and then they went on to say that they'd rather be an amputee than use Macs, and I'm kind of like, okay, this is all a bit like extreme, and so I reply and say,
nice ableism, bro.
Yeah, well, okay, I'd rather be... That's not exactly the quote. The quote is, look, if I had to choose between using a Mac or cutting off one of my toes, I'd wholeheartedly choose the latter, because at least the agony would go away after a few months, but that's just me. So it's not quite like I'd love to be an amputee, but it's not far off. Anyway, so then I reply. And I say that, yeah, I can totally see that. Like, the way Mac OS is laid out is not for everyone. And Windows users find it extremely, extremely awkward to deal with. And I totally get that. And it's just different approaches to how OSs work. And then I went on to say, like, that Windows is really class. Windows 10 with its touch stuff, really amazing sort of stuff. I think Macs are like Stone Age things with not having touch. And I went on to say that the Pixel XL, Google's flagship smartphone, is really class and the camera's badass. And I just kind of wanted to have a tech talk. No response. The guy just got out his vitriol. I was like, I need to just insult the guy for insult Edgar for the fact that he uses a Mac and then leave. And it just drives me so nuts. Like, I want to have interesting computer talks with people and talk about like graphics cards and the price of them given the Bitcoin craze and things like that. But it's always brought down to like, I hate Mac, I hate PC, and it just drives me absolutely daft. And I want to implore people to not get involved in that conversation, because the only people that are benefiting from this conversation are the companies that sell the products. Like companies want there to be this tribalism where people are just kind of like, I always use Apple or I always buy Windows. They're the only people benefiting from this, and we all feel crap because we're in the middle of mudslinging while they're laughing their way to the bank. And it needs to stop. It's terrible. That's my rant. I'm done.
It's really telling that you're trying to take the moral high ground on this issue. It's such an Apple thing to do.
Oh, it's the worst thing. I get that an awful lot. It's like I don't know. It's just there's no winning with this, and it's the same thing with the Canon, Nikon. You're right there, Bill.
Sorry, I'm not fully over my cold.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like Canon and Nikon and like anywhere where you have this sort of duality between like big companies. There's always just this intense tribalism, and it makes no sense. And they need to stop. I have a really good friend of mine who's a game dev who works in Galway, and he comes up to stay with us every so often. And he's a diehard Windows user, and like we have great chats about like just tech in general, and like he's firmly on one camp and I'm firmly on the other camp, but like there's no vitriol. We just kind of accept that, and all we do is we talk about whatever like tech purchase we've made last and advancements in technology, and it's great and it's healthy and it's wonderful, and you totally can communicate with the other team. It's just that people need to stop being so ignorant, like, and just it's terrible. So yeah, anyhow, rant over. Sorry, Bill. Thank you so much. That's just that is great catharsis right there.
Quite all right.
Shall we start the show proper?
Let's start the show.
Thanks for listening. I may or may not cut that. We'll see how it goes. It depends on if it sounds funny in post, I'll leave it in. But like, yeah, it might go. Anyhow, so one thing I want to bring up for first thing for follow up is that from that video, the fantasy mapping and play tectonics tutorial video, I was made aware of a really neat bit of software called Map to Globe, and you can find it on maptoglobe.com, and it effectively does what G-Plates does, except without any of the hassle. It's like, I tried it for a bit, it's like idiot proof. It's so much easier than G-Plates, and it's on the web, so I think that has kind of rendered that tutorial a bit kind of null and void. So anytime I say G-Plates in that tutorial, from now on, people take it that you should go to Map to Globe. It's so much better. I'll leave links in the doobly-doo. Mess around with it. It's great. And you can draw straight on the globe, and it makes the rectangular projection out of it. Amazing. Really good.
Class.
And free, which is really great. What a world we live in, Bill.
Well, very good. What a world.
So yeah, links in the doobly-doo. Another thing I wanted to bring up, apologies, I'm talking loads, but I am really annoyed, Bill.
Sorry.
Oh, what did you do?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe you're...
Whatever it did that annoyed you, I'm sorry.
Are you an art thief by any chance? Because that's what I'm annoyed at.
Well, I'm an art thief in like a kind of a international art thief. Cat burglar kind of way.
Okay, not national. You don't ply your trade on the national thing. It's only international.
Well, no, like high profile galleries and things.
Oh, okay. So not exclusively international. Like you'll raid places in Ireland.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Well,
I mean, obviously not. I mean, I have an alibi for everything, but I mean, yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I would never insinuate that you do this sort of thing. Sorry, like hypothetically speaking, sort of thing.
Of course.
Yeah. So what's if you were to raid a place, are we talking paintings? Or do you go where the money is? So whatever some rich clientele wants, or do you kind of have like a preferred material that you wish to alleviate from its current surroundings?
Well, paintings are kind of the only thing that are practical to steal. Like sculptures are too difficult for the most part. Like, 'cause they're big and they're bulky, whereas paintings can be, they can be rolled up and things and hidden inside other kinds of packaging. Whereas, like how the hell are you going to steal a Rodin? It's like 12 foot tall and made of brass.
Interesting thing here, though. This is a completely serious question. Can you roll up a painting?
I have no idea.
Okay, like I wonder, could you like? There's no way you could take the Mona Lisa out of its frame and just simply roll it up. Surely you would start like cracking and disintegrating.
Probably. Although I've a vague idea that was done in some reasonably famous art heist, that they rolled it up inside like a tube for carrying a carpet or something.
And it survived.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right, does it?
No, but I suppose it depends on the age of the painting.
Yeah.
If you're a relatively new painting that hasn't degraded for like hundreds of years, it might work. I don't know.
Any international art thieves in the Artifexian community, please let us know. Anonymously. I mean, we're not gonna pass it on to Interpol or anything.
Yeah, email us. Like you'll see on the form when you email it, it says all email addresses and names will be kept private. So that's your preferred form of communication when you want to divulge your crimes to us. Anyway, art thievery, right? So remember the last show, I talked about how I won a national art competition when I was younger.
I do.
And so in the show, I was like, oh, it'd be really nice to put a picture of this painting in the show notes so people can be like, wow, that's what baby Edgar produced. That is either great or terrible, depending on your inclination. And I searched for hours. It does not exist on the internet anymore. I went way back machine on Texaco's art site, on Texaco's site, to try and see if I could get a thumbnail image of the artwork back when it was on the site in like 2005, maybe, I can't remember. Nothing, completely gone. They've obviously wiped their servers. So now that there is no record of that picture on the internet at all. And there is no way of getting the picture back from Texaco. So functionally, it may as well not have happened. There is literally no record of anything, and it's terrible. Like, obviously, my name is mentioned on the site in text, in the Wayback Machine. You can see that if from the show notes from the last episode. But like, I can't get this picture back, and that's really, really annoying. Like, that is like, if they're going to hold on to it forever, which was part of the contract, and I knew that going in, they could at least keep their servers running. Like, it's only been, what, like 10 years? Like, how many pictures do they have to store on their servers? Like, I was really annoyed at that, like. Having my achievements erased by multinational oil corporations. Terrible.
Who would have thought that an oil corporation would ever do something sketchy?
I know, right? It's not even sketchy, it's just stupid, like why would you do that? Like, even for your own stuff. So like, when you reach your, like, I don't know, 150th anniversary of the thing, you can make a big montage of winners from the very beginning, but now they can't do that because clearly they've wiped their servers. Like it's idiotic. Not happy. And now I can't show people anymore. It's just terrible.
Did you show me when we lived together?
Possibly. There was a time, actually, yeah, almost definitely, because I remember showing my then girlfriend at the time, and that was around about the time we lived together. So it was still on the internet then. Was it
a painting from Halfpenny Bridge or something?
Yeah, it was like
Is that you? Yeah.
It was like a Van Gogh-esque painting of the Halfpenny Bridge, which for the international listeners is a pretty bridge in Dublin, with a lot of history to it. And it was called Iconic. Tangent alert here. I hate the Halfpenny Bridge because it's constructed very poorly.
Really?
The steps on it are the worst steps ever. Now, okay, my father was an architect, and one of the things he imbued in me from a very early age was the importance of correct steps. And you might think that that's crazy, but once you notice it, right? Once you notice that there's actual design that goes into steps.
Sorry, I'm still a bit sick.
That's fine. It's going to be hilarious to try and edit. But once you notice that there is like design that goes into steps, you don't just kind of lay things down. You suddenly begin to notice all the ways in which they're terrible. And anyways, on the Halfpenny Bridge, the run is much wider than the rise. To the point where it's kind of almost takes like 1 and a bit steps.
Right, it doesn't match with like a normal human's stride length.
Exactly, and it drives me absolutely mad. And if you look at people crossing the bridge, they look like penguins wobbling because they all have to like correct their gait as they go across the steps because the steps are all out of sync. I hate it. It just poor steps, man. I swear to God. I've talked to the captain loads about this as well. Every time we're somewhere and I'm like, these steps are bad. And like, even she's been kind of like, I get it now, Edgar. They're everywhere. Poor steps are everywhere. Anyhow. So I had my thing stolen by Texaco. I'm very, very annoyed. And there is literally nothing I can do about it. And this makes me eternally sad.
I'm sorry.
And I just wanted to complain. Sorry, internet, lots of complaining. Bill, would you like to do an item of follow-up now?
Yes. We got a pretty cool email from D, and it's referring back to one of our earliest episodes, where I challenged listeners to come up with some language or some method of communication that was non-verbal. and not a script, so like not audio and not written. And this is a really cool one. It's from Dee's novel that they're working on, and concerns a race of people called the Raynar, who have a spoken language, but also communicate via pheromone signals and blood transfusions.
Oh.
Yeah. So the pheromones are kind of a logographic system with one smell representing an idea or object, and then the context and strength of the smell giving it the rest of the meaning. And the blood transfusion, this race have an organ that allows them to transfer blood to each other, and they give it passes DNA and proteins and things, I guess, and they have an organ then inside that translates the DNA and whatever it received into language that is understood by them, and then recodes it back into DNA for storage.
I remember reading this email, and I believe they describe it like a ponytail coming out of the back of their heads, and there's like a cord that goes through this ponytail that is like a funnel for the blood.
Yes, and you attach them together.
Yeah, slight criticism there, and I mean this in the best possible way. It's a bit Avatar-esque. I remember reading that and going, "Oh, that's what the Avatar people do." Because is that not what the Avatar people do?
I couldn't say.
Have you seen the movie?
Nope.
What?
No, I've never seen Avatar.
Is that a deliberate choice?
It doesn't interest me at all. It looks as though it would bore me to tears.
Oh, it's not a good movie, right? But like,
well, there we go.
Well, yeah, but I would advise watching it because it's kind of like I don't know, it's a bit of a seminal moment in kind of like genre fiction, be it good or not. In the same way that you know the way you read old books, right? And some of these old books to a modern reader aren't exactly great. But like, there's still a value in kind of just knowing that happened as a cultural thing. And Avatar has become kind of like quite embedded in the nerd consciousness. So I think it's something that you should try and consume. But yeah, it's long, it's boring, and it's a little bit racist. And it's a bit of a knockoff of many other works. But yeah, anyhow, the mechanism by which the blood is transfused reminded me a little bit of Avatar, and I suppose if I had one criticism of the system would be kind of like maybe think of a separate mechanism, especially if it's like a kind of like a canal through a ponytail that connects together with other ponytails. Very Avatar-like, but the pheromones idea is cool. I like that. I like that. It's really cool. And even the DNA is really cool. But I think finding a different way would be awesome.
What it made me think of is, I may have mentioned this in an earlier podcast, there's a book called Blood Music by Greg Bear.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure I've mentioned it. And it's about a guy who creates essentially sentient bacteria. He allows them to code and rewrite their own internal kind of genetic information in a way that acts like a brain. So the bacteria become capable of independent thought. And there's a bit where it's kind of narrated from the point of view of one of these creatures. And like the way they communicate through like their host organism is through pheromones and chemicals in the bloodstreams and stuff.
I think this
pretty cool.
I think this came from our like world inside world episode. We had a discussion about that. I think it came from there.
Don't remember that episode.
Yeah, we talked about. I can't remember. There was a big. We put a big obnoxious term on it. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe I'm making it up. I don't know. we've been doing this for so long that I really worry about what we've talked about. Like, because we will definitely start backtracking, covering the same things over and over again, which is a worry to me. But yes. Overall, I think the system's good. I think the system's kind of cool, and the pheromone thing is quite unique. So I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we move on to some heraldry?
Let's.
I love the way heraldry has kind of sort of replaced vexillology on this podcast. Out of nowhere. And given that at least 50% of us here, like as in the people talking right now, me and you, Bill, are complete heraldry noobs, it's interesting that heraldry has kind of become a thing. But I'm glad it has, right? Because this month was class. I had so much fun looking at the listener submitted works of art. It's amazing. So for anyone who doesn't know, last month we put out a call for an Artifexian coat of arms. And we had a couple of people respond and write in with things, and we're going to showcase them here. And we have a little talk about them because they're really cool. From talking to N6, our resident heraldry expert and mod of r/heraldry, the important thing for what we're going to talk about now is the BLAZON, right? So we're going to show you the picture because it's fun to look at pictures and you go into the show notes to see all these pictures. But the important thing to remember is like the sort of blueprint for the coat of arms, which means that anytime someone wants to make a new coat of arms, they can simply just create their own riff off that blueprint. So it's not necessarily these exact pictures we're going to show you that would be the coat of arms. The blueprint is the main thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So the first one here is by Cool Mare, who I believe has written into the show before.
Yeah, and fairly regular on the subreddit as well.
On the podcast, I'm pretty sure there's only 2 of us on the podcast, but what you call it? Yes. So they made a coat of arms. Now, do we read out the heraldry, or do we reinterpret it as English?
I think it might be funny to try and read out the BLAZON because I don't know how to pronounce some of these words.
Okay, neither do I. Okay, so, all right, listeners, we're going to read out the BLAZONs. We don't know how to pronounce some of these words, so take this as a comedic bit, right? We're going to get many things wrong here. Go to the show notes and you can see
we can put the BLAZON in the show notes as well, though, can't we?
Yeah, we'll put the BLAZON and we'll put the coat of arms in the show notes and you'll be able to see all of it. But yeah, for now, just listen to us say heraldry terms wrong, okay? So Cool Mare's coat of arms is as follows. Sable. Oh god, the second word isn't even English. Estencelly? Is that estencelly, Bill?
I guess so.
Okay. Sable, estencelly or, above a base enarched argent, a roundel of the same charged with a sun gules, for a crest, a no-ape, sejant, erect sable headed and armed purpure, holding in its dexter paw an astrolabe, or, full stop, motto, Artifexian in the Oa script. So,
Nice.
neither the people who don't know heraldry didn't get it, and the people who do know heraldry didn't get it because it was mispronounced. But in the show notes, a really quick sort of overview of this would be there is a no-ape on the very top. If you remember back from the flora and fauna episode, holding an astrolabe. The sort of main part of the crest thing is like a red sun with what looks like the horizon of a planet below it, and these kind of 3 dot sort of triangles peppering the back of the thing, and then at the bottom the motto says, like the BLAZON says, Artifexian in the Oa script. I think this looks bad ass. Go into show notes, it's class.
It's really good.
Okay, do you want to have a go at the second one?
Sure. So this is from the Legion 103.
Yep.
The BLAZON is Escutcheon. Gules, a pall enhanced argent, overall a billet abased argent. At dexter chief, an 8-pointed star argent. At sinister chief, a letter A argent. Supporters, 2 pillars argent. An escroll gules surrounding both. Dexter, a 4-pointed star argent. Sinister, a 4-pointed star argent. For a crest, a sallet displayed argent. Dexter, a 4-pointed star argent. Sinister, a 4-pointed star argent. Chief, a 4-pointed star argent. Torse, Gules and Argent, the mantling Gules and Argent. Slogan, Aedificationem mundi, which is together we build the world in Latin. Motto, Artifexian.
I love the pause between that the Latin. Your brain's just like, oh crap, what are we doing here? So in English, this is, so we have the aedificationem mundi logo at the very top. At the very bottom banner, we have like Artifexian. We have 2 pillars on either side that are like wrapped in this like looks like a red coil. There's 4 stars above them, and in the main crest, we have a star, a letter A, I believe.
That's not the crest, it's the shield.
Oh, the shield. I'm sorry, but did I annoy all the heraldry people? Oh, in the shield, there's a star on the left and a letter A, I believe. I think that's a letter A on the right. And again, it's in the show notes to go check it out. Yeah, cool. I like it. It's really cool. The heraldry game from people here is really strong. Like, I wasn't expecting these to be really good. I thought people would just kind of like take the out of the thing and, I don't know, send us something silly. But these are really good. So like, should we do the last one?
Yeah.
So this is from a u/Yotafi. Yotafi? Yotafi. You know who you are. I have no idea. So the blazon is Azure at the honor point, a globe. At base, 2 hammers in saltire, all or. As supporters, 2 pillars or. An escroll argent surrounding boat behind the escutcheon. For a crest, an artifexian, I understand that bit, displayed argent, motto, Artifexian, meaning Artifexian in the Oa script. And so again, in English, this is a very, very much a yellow and, a gold and black sort of vibe going on here. In the shield, was it, Bill? Shield?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the shield we have a world, and below it we have 2 hammers crossing, world building. At the sides we have supporters, like 2 pillars, and there's kind of like a bit of parchment wrapped around them with containing the letters, the syllables of Artifexian in the Oa script. And then up top, we have the Artifexian alien sitting proudly atop a helmet. And I thought that was class.
I really like that, yeah.
It's great. And I can't tell here because it's on a black background. I really hope the Artifexian alien is kind of like has one hand up in the air, like he's like, hi.
To me, it looks like the hands are kind of behind his back.
Yeah. Again, but you can't really tell because the black of the hands is the same black as the background. I think
I'm seeing it on a white background.
All right. So there are no hands sticking up. It's behind the back.
Yeah. Hold on. I'll send you a photo.
All right. So Bill has sent me a picture of this coat of arms on a white background, and yes, it looks like the Artifexian alien is kind of like holding his hands behind his back. He's quite contemplative in his gait. And this is great. It's so good. So I'm going to put links in the show notes to all of these with the blazons included. Have a gander. Let us know in the subreddit what you like. Remember, we're not looking for this exact picture. We're looking for the intent. And we can endlessly riff and reinterpret the blazon. So the pictures are really only just to give you an idea. And I said in the last episode that there is a non-zero chance that maybe some t-shirts will be made with these things on them because I really want them. I'm going to leave it open for another month. So if anyone else wants to send in stuff, you have another month to send in stuff. And then at the end of the next episode, myself and Bill might sit down and start thinking about what one could become an, in quotes, official one. And we can start sticking it on t-shirts. So yeah. Do it. And we'll leave contact information in the show notes so you can send all the stuff on to us.
I have one question here.
You have a question?
I do. So Culmer and Yotafi both put the OA script, Artifexian in the OA script
Yes.
on their coat of arms, but they've done them slightly differently.
Yeah.
So, which one of those is or what are the differences between them? I guess. Do you have anything to say on that as the creator of the script?
Okay, I'll tell you what I do need to say about the script. The script, having not looked at it in a while since I made that video, is butt ugly. I just, in hindsight, I'm kind of like, oh god, Edgar, like it's not a pretty script, and I wish I'd come up with something better. But there you go. This is what we have. I do not care how it is OA-ized, because like being in Korea, for example. They would Romanize their alphabet, and you would find that every place had its own Romanization of whatever the word was. And so, like, you go into one shop, and then I don't know, just to pick an example that's made up, say Coke, for example. Like, one shop stocking one brand might Romanize Coke in one way. Another shop stocking another brand might Romanize Coke another way, and that just was normal. There is no one standard way of Romanizing a thing, so I think the same thing applies for the script. However which way people want to OA-ize the word Artifexian is the correct way. It doesn't matter as long as people are able to sound out the syllables and go, oh yeah, that means Artifexian.
Okay. So you're taking a firmly descriptivist stance on this.
I am. Yeah, based on being in Korea, I think that's the correct way to go. Because, yeah, whatever suits the purposes of each person. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
All right, cool. So, yeah, leave more coats of arms in the sub or on email and things like that, and have a look at these all in the show notes. I can't tell you how much fun I had this month. It was class. All right, shall we go into the main topic? And before we do that, can I get a little break to make a cup of tea?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, I will see you in a few minutes, yeah?
Talk to you shortly.
Cool. Bye-bye.
So, what I've written for this week is back in Janspar.
Month.
Week is actually the word for month in my conlang, Edgar.
Yes. How silly of me.
So what I've written for this month's episode is back in Janspar. And, as pretty much everything that I do for Janspar is in the form of documents. And as we were talking about last week. So this is a letter written from one character to another. And I'll just go ahead and read it, I guess.
Cool.
Eloath, write no more to me of deadlines and obligations. I've not the patience for you to tell me of my duties. The Duke is happy to patronize me, and I am happy with her patronage, and that shall be an end to the matter. The work shall be finished when it shall be finished. Should the gods in the peak desire it to be otherwise, they wish it in vain. But with their blessing, and absent your nagging, I will produce for your presses a work unlike any seen in Janspar so far. Such an undertaking cannot be set in neat rows or squared into tidy reams, and cannot proceed according to such schedules. Continue with your pamphlets and plays and prayer books. The demand for such will not fade while Darian writes his histories. However, I have listed below an approximation of what the contents of this work shall be. Let this be your guide in planning the manufacture and publication of my work. I expect each age to fill a volume of its own. A supplementary volume of assorted essays may also be desired. The maps, where possible, should be from our own fleet's surveys, not the Escutcheon charts. Volume 1, Introduction, covering introduction and dedication, the eras of history, essays on theology, and a survey of the creation of the world. Volume 2, The Antithermal Age. Volume 3, The Age of Revelation. Volume 4, The Age of Contact. Volume 5, The Age of Withdrawal. Volume 6, The Age of Mortality. Perhaps a seventh volume could contain a gazetteer of all Janspar and accounts of the fleet voyages, perhaps with the assorted essays. These essays could include the following: a rejection of locism, governance and mortality, theology and law. These additional writings, each of which has found modest success as a pamphlet in its own right, Eloath, I am no innocent in the business of publishing, would augment the work's value as a tool of education and a store of the accumulated knowledge of our nation's intellectual achievements. Make the necessary arrangements, have the materials and inks and artisans ready for the manufacture of my work, and the work I shall deliver in its due, Eloath, and not a single day sooner. Yours, Darian.
Man, Darian seems like a dick. I really like this one.
A little bit.
He's such a dick. Like, he's just so full of himself. Oh, what a gee bag. I love it, man. It's really cool. So clearly what you've done here is you've riffed off the thing we mentioned last week about like the micro prose. What was it? Who was it? Was it Edgar Rice Burroughs? No, it wasn't him. Who was the insane dude who was like who did a whole load of stuff, and one thing was that he just wrote a table of contents as a work in and of itself.
It was a thing I saw on a website, and the website was partially inspired by William S. Burroughs.
Oh, William S. Burroughs.
No relation to Edgar, as far as I know.
So I like that you tied it in from last month. I think that's really cool. Questions, right?
Go for it.
Okay. What is the anticermal age?
So I think I've mentioned this before, and I actually, some extracts from Darian's histories I have put on my website. So the anticermal age is the age before the gods of Janspar had communicated with mortality. Is
anticermal a made up word, or is that a real word?
It's a made up word, but I think I derived it from before conversation. I think from the like Latin sermo or something is conversation or speech, something like that. So it's before the conversation with the gods, before the gods had given them the things the gods gave them, the kind of the gifts that divinity gave them. And also part of that is tied in with the languages of Janspar, in that there is a common lingua franca used around the world, which came from the gods, or came from the gods' messengers.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so if... Oh, sorry, continue.
So the first peoples contacted by the gods, the first mortals contacted by the gods, were the Escutcheon, and they have a language that they brought with them and they used in communicating with the rest of the world, and that became a sort of a global lingua franca. Okay,
so from this table of contents, have I got the sort of chronology of your world here, right?
Yeah.
The anticermal age is, you said, pre-contact, pre-god contact.
Yeah.
The age of revelation, then, I assume, is the point at which mortality became aware that there was deities. Age of contact is that there is contact with said deities. Age of withdrawal is where the deities withdraw from the world. And age of mortality is kind of like the age of no gods, like the human age has begun.
Not exactly. You've got the thrust of it right. So the significant event in Janspar is the abandonment.
Yes.
Yeah. This is all before the abandonment.
Oh.
Yeah, this is written pre-abandonment. This document is written pre-abandonment.
Oh, and then for the listeners, the abandonment is where the gods abandoned Janspar.
Yeah, sorry. So the fundamental kind of event in the history of Janspar is, and it's quite a recent one in the chronology of when I'm mostly writing from. It's like in the past few decades, is that the gods no longer communicated with mortality.
So that means then, if the abandonment happened after the age of mortality,
right?
That means the age of withdrawal does not refer to the withdrawal of deities.
Yes.
So what withdrawal is that referring to? Is that just like a withdrawal of whatever Darian's race is from certain areas?
Darian is just like a regular human.
Well, he clearly thinks himself more as a regular human, but anyways.
Yeah, so okay, I could read out the extract from his work, The Eras of History, like that explains it.
Oh yeah, do definitely, yeah.
So this is actually on my WordPress, on my Anspire site.
Links in the show notes.
The Age of Revelation was the period during which divinity communed with the Escutcheon and raised them to knowledge of their truth. This period lasted for approximately 300 years, in which time the gods taught their followers of many and diverse arts to aid them in their great work. They crafted their language, learned of theology. This age ended when the first Tutve sailed to carry the gods' words to the rest of mortality.
Okay, yeah, but that doesn't sort out what the Age of Withdrawal is.
That's because I've only read one of them, Edgar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
The Age of Contact took place over the following 300 years, as the Escutcheon sailed and journeyed to all parts of Janspar, carrying the revelations of the peak. The Escutcheon consider this to be their great work. This was followed by the Age of Withdrawal, 200 years, in which many of the Tutve ceased interacting with the rest of mortality and returned to Escutcheon. So the missions from the Escutcheon to raise the rest of the world kind of wound down, and they returned to their own continent. That's what the withdrawal is.
Okay. So it's a mortal withdrawal as opposed to a deity withdrawal.
Yeah.
So,
and the Age of Mortality, these past 8 centuries, the nations and tribes of mortality, including those Tutve still abroad in Janspar, have continued to bear the light of civilization and the glory of the peak.
Okay, and then what follows afterwards is the abandonment.
Yes, but as I said, that was written, that's part of the book that Darian is talking about in his letter. And this extract and the letter are both written before the abandonment.
Okay, now I have further questions.
Mm-hmm.
Darian writes, the maps, where possible, should be from our own fleet surveys, not the Escutcheon charts. Now, given everything you've said, it seems like the Escutcheon charts are probably the best source here. Is this a bit of xenophobia here, or what's going on?
What can I say about that? Darian is interested in promoting his own nation. And he, as a younger man, he traveled with a sort of an expedition from his country, which is Hearth, to circumnavigate the globe and make their own charts and things so that they would be not reliant on the Escutcheon charts. So there's a kind of, I suppose there's probably maybe an element of distrust there. It's a somewhat political move.
So would it be safe to say that when Darian, the great novelist or writer, completes this work of the history of Janspar, it would be quite biased? This wouldn't be a fair account. This would be very much written from the perspective of Darian's people.
Maybe not like as bad as all that, because he is a scholar and a philosopher, and he would hold himself to a high standard, but he would just prefer, because maps are an expression of power, in a sense. And he wants the maps using this to be an expression of hearth power, not just reliant on the information given by the Escutcheon.
Right. Okay. Cool. Final question.
Go for it.
What is a rejection of Lochism? What is Lochism?
Lochism is an ideology that exists within Janspar. And I've kind of messed around with writing this for a while. And it's been very, very difficult to do. And it's something that I mentioned a bit in one of our recent threads on the subreddit. It's an idea that exists within Janspar that people and their traits are hugely influenced by where they're from. So if you move to the the mountains and you raise a family that they will be hardy mountain children. And it's that they kind of, that thing is strongly believed instead of strong ideas about racial hereditary traits. That like racial hereditary traits isn't really a thing that exists in the in the intellectual world of Janspar.
Oh, that's really hang on, this is great. Is this based on any real life thing, or have you made this up?
I'm not really aware of anything in real life. I'm sure it does exist in some way, but this is kind of part of my idea to create in Janspar just like actual different ways of thinking about things. That the way people, their culture is sufficiently different that they have to, or that I as a writer have to create different things to put in their minds and different things in their intellectual cultures.
Man, that is brilliant. Like, and I realize every time you bring something, I'm always like, oh, that's really good because I'm envious of your stuff. But that is a great idea. It's like environmental determinism over sort of genetics. Like, that's a really interesting idea to play with.
Mm-hmm. Cool, thank you.
That's amazing. I'm really glad I asked that question.
And in a way, I guess this might be a little bit kind of an attempt for me to create the kind of world that I want. Because if you don't have strong ideas about racial hereditary traits and things like racial traits being really important, then you won't have the kind of racial prejudices that exist in the modern world. And like someone could easily say that's just me being a SJW, but I think there's a historical precedent for that because in the ancient world, people didn't really care where you came from. They cared what your culture was. So it didn't matter, if you were of like North African blood and you lived in Roman Britain, if you could speak Latin and you took part in the Roman culture, your what we would see as race was completely irrelevant.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. But like a counter argument to that would be that I believe humans are predisposed to prejudice.
Yeah.
So if racial prejudice wasn't a thing, they will find prejudice somewhere else. Ergo, they will find prejudice in the sort of environmental determinism. So taking it back to like the hardy mountain kids, like I can imagine they mightn't care if the hardy mountain kids are, they have dark skin or light skin or whatever. But they might say something like all hardy mountain kids are like thick idiots because they don't grow up in the city. So there still will be prejudice. So it's not like this Lockism is creating this wonderful utopian-esque world. It'll just
Sorry, go on.
It'll just be a different form of prejudice, not one based on race.
Absolutely.
And again, that's not a rebuttal.
And that's what I'm going for. It's not that it's perfect. It's that it is a different kind of thing.
I think that's really interesting. I think that's very, very interesting. You need to write that, man.
It's really hard. First of all, I have to come up with like Lokism isn't a single thing. The way that, I don't know, the Mendelian inheritances or whatever. It's not a single thing. It's like a complex of different ideas that can take lots of different forms of strength and weakness and whatever. But first of all, I have to come up with a fairly clear idea of what those could be, and then I have to write that rejection of it. So
oh yeah, but no, you don't have to write the rejection of it. Like you should solidify what this way of thinking is, and then leave the rejection to later points. Could you write it from, if it's a difficult subject to get a hold of, could you write it as a sort of child's tuition book?
Yes, I could. I have a few essays around on my laptop that I like various things on theology, for example, that I've written as instructional things for people studying theology within Janspar.
Okay, so that might pose an easier framework to be able to address this complex topic. Man, but that is golden. That is absolutely golden. I love that idea. I think that's class.
Thank you.
It's so cool. It made me think of a thing. It's only marginally related, but it popped in my head, so I'm going to say it. I recently bought a book. In fact, I bought 2 books, one of which was the worst purchase I've ever made in my life.
Physical books.
Do you know what else? This is meant for the green room, but I have stopped using Audible.
Oh.
Because I needed to. I didn't need to, but I wanted to get 1Password. I don't know if you know what this is, but it's like a beefy, robust password protection bit of software. And unfortunately, it runs on subscription. And I was like, I am dying by subscriptions here. I have so many subscriptions. It's draining my income. I need to stop. So I was like, where can I make cuts? And I was like, do you know what I'll do? I'll cut Audible and just read books instead. And like, borrow books from the library and things like that. So I bought a load of books. One of them was great. One of them was atrocious. I won't name the atrocious one for fear of shaming the author, but one of them was Alien and Alien Societies. And it's a book talking about how to write about aliens and how to come up with believable aliens. And just this idea of kind of like earlier where we talked about the prejudice thing, where it's like it's just a different form of prejudice. This extrapolating that and taking it to all parts of alien life, where it's like, look at what humans do and try and imagine like a similar sort of thing, except in a different sort of sphere. And there's a big section in this book that deals with alien sport.
Class.
Yeah. And it's not kind of like, maybe they all play laser ball. Like, it's not that. It's more kind of like, try and analyze where sport has come from. And one method of analyzing this is to say that sport is basically an analog for warfare. Like rugby is a good example. 2 like lines of burly men or women line up and try and batter each other into submission. It's a pretty close analogy. And then the book encourages you to think like, well, what happens if you had a race or a species that was less prone to warfare? Like, how might sporting things manifest themselves? And there's a big spiel in it about like cooperative sports and like trying to imagine competition, but competition that is where the success is based on cooperation. And that is such a difficult thing to imagine from like a human perspective, because when we think of competition, we think of like, we must beat the others. And like the idea of winning by helping the others is so alien and so foreign. And it just, when you mentioned that thing about like, about Lockeism and how it's kind of like what we have here, but sort of different, it reminded me of that. And it's very interesting. I'll leave links to the book in the doobly-doo. People should go pick it up. It's not entirely that expensive, and it's a good book. So yeah.
There's another thing, just when you mentioned the sport as warfare. There's a really interesting example that I read before. Now, I'm going to say up front, this may be really colonial in its origins, so don't hold me to it. But there's I've heard of a form of cricket played in the Trobriand Island, which is in New Guinea, I think.
Okay.
And when it was colonized and Christianized by missionaries, warfare was banned between the different groups of islanders, and instead they just play cricket. So cricket has replaced the warfare.
So as in, like, if you have 2 feuding peoples, they just play a game of cricket, and whoever wins has won the, in quotes, war.
I guess. No, I don't know that much about it, and as I said, huge caveat that it's obviously a very, very easily, could be very much be told from a colonial kind of perspective, but there's some kind of connection there. Man,
wouldn't it be great, right, if the next time America decides to bring democracy to the Middle East, they're kind of like, instead of sending in fighter jets, we'll just play as in a game of football? Like, that would be the funniest thing ever.
But then they'd argue about which kind of football it is.
Yeah, that's fair. Well.
And that would lead to a war.
It will. A long enough timeline, all things lead to war. But yeah, man, cricket, right? I'm not going to make this like a sport corner, but cricket is I love cricket, man. Cricket is just, it's so good. And I don't know if I've talked about this before on the podcast, but like, if you haven't indulged in cricket, and if you ever happen to find yourself in England or in any of the other countries that play cricket, just that England is the kind of the biggest one in Europe, go and watch a live cricket match. If you're in any way interested in sports, just go and watch a live cricket match. Bring along a picnic, a few beers, bring along some friends. It is a wonderful day out. Like, the cricket is marginal. Like, the cricket is fun to look at every so often, but really it's about friends and hanging out. It is brilliant. Absolutely.
The real cricket was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, no, man, it totally is. It totally is. And you can sit there for like 8 hours or however long the game goes on for. It's many hours, and it's just wonderfully fun. And then the thing that I always found really interesting was the dichotomy. Now, I need to preface this by saying I was at one live cricket game, so this may not be how it always is. But it was conveyed to me that it is common that there's a dichotomy between the players and the fans. And the players tend to be kind of quite well-to-do, middle to upper class white people in general in England. I appreciate that cricket happens all around the world with different demographics, but we're just talking about England. And then the fans tend to be not of the same socioeconomic level. They tend to be quite working class and quite rowdy.
Really?
And sorry.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and when I was there, it totally was that. Like everyone, like you had the prim and proper people in the stands, like the big kind of grand sort of stand, and then in the normal sort of the plebe seats that we were in, everyone was drinking beer, everyone was drunk, we were all shouting abuse at one another. It was just fantastic. and it's very, very different. Like yeah, the two different sort of groups of people getting together enjoying this thing. It's wonderful.
Cool.
Anyhow, do you have any closing points?
No, I think we've covered everything. Then we just scan over this again. I've got a couple of other things by and about Darien on my Janspar blog. It was the thing we read about the sins of Amulin was from his histories of Janspar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that would be somewhere in volume 6, I guess. Yeah, he's one of the characters I've got the most in my head for Janspar, and I'm trying to, as I was talking about before, keep a fairly consistent voice for him, and keep it distinct from the other voices that I have. So that's been tricky from a writing point of view.
Oh, really? You just have to make him sound like a dick.
But look, he's got more to his character than just that. At some stage, I might, like, once I've got a little bit more material out there, I might go back and edit everything that I have to give it a more consistent voice, or at least that at different ages he sounds more similar within that age, like his own age, not ages across the history of the world.
Yeah, like when he's 20, in his 20s he sounds one way, and when he's 60 he sounds another way.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because he's still reasonably young at this point.
Oh, people on Janspar, what's their sort of like age length?
I guess
similar to us.
Similar enough to us. Into their 80s isn't unusual.
Okay, cool. So, shall we talk ergativity?
Let's talk ergativity.
So I made a video about ergativity, and it was released yesterday.
Should I go watch that?
Yes, Bill. Bill has already watched it. That's the joke there. So a couple of things I want to mention on the podcast about it. Overall, I was quite happy with it. It's pretty dense, but not as dense as the source material. So I managed to hack through the source material quite a lot and present it in something that I think is understandable, but may take one or two watchings to be able to do it, which is a lot better than the source material, I had to read that Ergativity book. I think it was 3 times in total, and it's about 300 pages. It's heavy duty going.
The Dixon one.
The Dixon one, yeah. The Dixon
Wow.
one is not fun. Like it's so good and it's so comprehensive, but it's not fun to read. And nearly every sentence you need to parse it twice to be able to understand what the hell is going on. And that's if you have a like pre-knowledge of the topic. Like I kind of vaguely understood the topic before attacking it. If you had no idea what ergativity is and then picked up Dixon, you'd just be like, yeah, no, can't do it. I have no idea what's going on here. So I was fairly happy with the execution of it, but there's a couple of points that need to be brought up. The big main one is that I messed up the passive voice part.
Okay.
And I need to correct that. What I present on screen, like the sentences I present on screen, I'll leave a link in the show notes to the exact timestamp of this for people, are correct. The labeling is not correct. I had a brain fart there and did not put in the correct labeling.
Can you say that again? Can you explain what the mistake is there again? So
the mistake is, right, so this is basically what you need to take away from this. The passive voice, right?
Yeah.
Treat the passive voice like the anti-passive voice in that it is a function, right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's easier in English because English has a passive voice, but forget language for a second. Let's talk almost like maths, right? The passive voice promotes the P argument of a sentence to S, right?
Right.
And it drops the A argument. So if we had like Bill ate cake, Bill is an A argument, cake is a P argument.
Yeah.
Bill will get eliminated because he was the A argument, that goes. And cake, which was the P argument, will get upgraded to S. So if you double check that with the video in the show notes, you'll see that my marking of the sentences is off. And I just totally had a brain fart. I just didn't execute it all. And people on the Conlang subreddit kind of tore into me. They were like, you got the hard one right, the anti-passive one right, but you messed up the thing that English has. And I was like, damn it, I'm sorry. So I need to put it out there that the marking's wrong. Passive voice, you drop the A. For the most part, there's nuance there, but you drop the A and P goes to S. That's the big sort of correction from the video. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it does.
And intuitively, anyways, we English speakers get the passive voice because we speak a language that has a passive voice. This is why I messed up the labeling, because intuitively I get how to form a sentence, but I don't intuitively know how to label. So that's where that happened. A lot of the sort of the only other bit of feedback on this is a lot of this is sort of a complaint, and I hate to complain about Artifexian, but as a creator, I just want to voice this. A lot of the feedback was of the form, you forgot to mention. And other creators have complained about this before, and I think this video kind of was the first one where kind of I got a lot of it. Like, the you forgot to mention feedback is really valuable for someone reading the comments and being all like, I wonder what like the Conlang people see about this. And they're like, well, actually, it's a little bit more nuanced than he presents and things like that. But I just want the internet to be aware that like I have to try and condense a huge amount of information in a video, and that invariably will lead to like glossing over certain nuances that you can only get if you read a big massive tome like Dixon. And I just want to put it out there, just like, go easy on me with videos. Like, try not to be all like, you forgot to mention, and then write an essay about everything I forgot to mention. It's like, I didn't really forget to mention it. Like, I couldn't mention it, otherwise we'd have a 45-minute long video and it'll take me like 2 months to make, and that's not viable. So I think that's important, and I think it's also important for audiences as well. This is going to make me sound like a real SJW here, but or a real like left-wing snowflake. It's important for audiences to remember this for like the mental well-being of creators, because one person leaving the you forgot to mention feedback is fine, but if you have a substantial audience and you get like say 100 people mentioning that you forgot to mention, it's very hard not to kind of feel really sort of like my work is crap because of that. Do you know what I mean? And it's just a thing. Just bear. I think just for internet health overall, just bear in mind when you leave that sort of comment, there is an effect. There's a accumulation effect on creators, and it can be quite disheartening, I suppose. And I say this again, having said that I get the value of the comment. Like, I get that people reading the comments will be able to see more nuance, and I totally get that. But it just like, I think framing it needs to be kind of needs to be done correctly. And those are basically the 2 points about ergativity.
Cool.
Other than that, I think the video kind of worked really well, and I had a lot of people being like, "I get it now," and that was really valuable because all I wanted to, just for people to just understand the broad strokes of ergativity. Like, never mind all the nuance, just broad strokes. What is ergative alignment? And people seem to get it, which I think was good.
Cool.
Do you have any comments about the video? Anything that stuck out to you that you think I might need to address?
No, I don't think so. I found the video very helpful. I mean, I'd seen the script and everything, so I had a bit of an idea. I mean, I had no idea before I read the script, but the video really helped solidify that. So I think it was a very successful video in that sense.
Oh, I will say, if I can jump here really quickly, a huge part of success is down to Sasha, Sasha Adarain from the Conlang subreddit. Like, when I first handed them the copy that you've seen, they were like, yeah, there's about 4 or 5 things in here that are just flat out wrong. You've like absolutely misunderstood them. And which is fair enough. This happens. I am a human. I am fallible. And without them, it would have been carnage. So they really, really, really helped. And like the passive voice mix-up thing, I did it on my own Steam. Like they cleared the script and was like, yes, script is good to go. And I was like, yeah, of course I could just label it like this. It's fine. And then it's like, oh, Edgar, the one bit you were in charge of. But yeah. So massive thanks to them.
And I really liked this isn't a you thing specifically, just a cool language fact. The fluid S. I thought the fluid S was dope as hell.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what? There are 2 points I can bring up here that are kind of peripheral points that I think are quite interesting. I believe it's Fijian. This is that does this. It has all verbs in Fijian can be treated both intransitively and transitively, which in and of itself is kind of mind-blowing, because if you think of the word like a verb like devoured, like I devoured, like it doesn't really make much sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to devour something. But margin, like I can't come up with the top of my head with a decent example. But in Fijian, all verbs can be treated both intransitively and transitively. All you have to do is mark them and be all like, hey, if they get this marking, they are, I think it's intransitive if they're marked, and if they're unmarked, they are transitive, which I think is pretty cool. That's a really interesting idea, and it does not happen in English. Like, we have fairly set categories of what verbs do what. There is some overlap, but in Fijian it's just like it's a free for all, and just mark when you want to use it in a certain way, which I think is class.
Yeah.
And then another interesting point. There's a language called Dravidian, which
South India.
Is it South India? Is that where that's from?
I think so. Yeah.
Let me just do a quick Dravidian.
I know the Dravidian people are Southern India, and
South India. Yeah. And the Dravidian language is really interesting in that it doesn't have pivots. So it doesn't have like if in the sentence I give, Luke arrived and Luke saw Yoda, it doesn't have the thing whereby, if Luke and Luke are in the same place, you can drop one of them and say, Luke arrived and saw Yoda. It doesn't have that. What it does, and I think this is really cool, it says whatever noun is at the start of the sentence, that's the one that can be eliminated going forward. That's it. That's their only rule. And I think that's really cool. And it leads to like some interesting sentences, whereas an English speaker, you're kind of like, how on earth does that make sense? And you really have to like work your brain out to be all like, okay, right, the first noun is the key noun. Okay, so anytime there's an omission, or it looks like there's an omission, just insert that first noun. And it's weird to get a hold of.
That's cool.
It's really cool, and arguably it's a lot simpler.
Because it's entirely regular, because it's always the first noun gets eliminated, no matter what the role of the noun is.
Now, I will put in here that I don't know if it's always entirely regular. This is one of those things where language nerds will give out to me, because they're kind of like, you made a generalization. There was only a limited amount of examples in the Ergativity book. But my impression was that it was always regular. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I think that's pretty cool. A lack of a pivot, whatever the keyword up front is, and you can just eliminate that going forward. So yeah.
Cool.
Those are my points on ergativity.
About Fijian, so any verb can be transitive or intransitive. Does that have any ergativity in the language?
Oh, that's really interesting. I don't know. Hold
Okay.
on. Let me do a quick check of WALS. FYI, anyone who doesn't know what WALS is, it's the World Atlas of Languages. Language sorting. The World Atlas of Language Structures, and it's a really, really good resource. So let me just do a quick check for what the ergative languages are. Now, can he find Fiji straight away? Answer: no. Where on earth is Fiji? Bill, do you know where Fiji is?
Yeah.
Yeah. I swear to God, if you say like Oceania, I'm going to kill you.
Go to, you know where Djibouti is in Australia, and go east from there.
Djibouti?
It's in the sea. Like,
Fijian. Right, got it. Fijian, apparently, it's marked as grey here. So that means, according to WALS, that Fijian has... Oh, God damn it. Fijian is neutral. Now, what that means, I don't know. But it is not marked as being nominative accusative, and is not marked as being ergative absolutive, and it is not marked as being tripartite. So it's something else.
it does have verb, object, subject order, though.
I mean, yeah, but that's not really related to ergativity.
No, it's the first thing I saw on there on the Wikipedia page.
I can't wait to do a video on word order. Like I've been putting it up. The way the Patreon works on the main channel is that I usually have a couple of ideas for videos floating around in my heads that are fairly interchangeable. And then I say to people, hey, here's the 2 or 3 ideas I have. You guys vote on which one you'd like to see next. And word order has been in there a lot, but no one's been like voting for it. And I think most people think word order is like quite boring, but I can't wait to do word order. Word order is seriously interesting. Like especially when you do stuff like in German where you have like one word order, but then certain connecting words like and or but or whatever flip the word order in the subordinate sentence, and it's really interesting. So I can't wait to do it. I hope the guys over there vote on word order. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
No, Edgar, all you got to do is just like stack the ballot. So the options are word order and then like 2 other things that are both terrible.
Yes. Word order, tech review video, and travel vlog. And then everyone's going to be like, word order. Eventually it will happen, though. I should say, for people who aren't Patreons of the main Patreon, it's not like there will be a topic that I suggest that will never get made. Like, all of them will get made. It's just deciding on the order, which I think is important. Anyway, anything else to say about ergativity?
No.
I went to see Black Panther.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I have thoughts.
What are your thoughts?
Black Panther was crap.
Huh.
No, okay, that's the BuzzFeedy headline to the thing. Black Panther was actually really good.
Okay.
The experience of watching Black Panther was probably the worst cinema experience I've ever had.
I'm relieved to hear that.
Yeah. I thought the movie was... There was a couple of points... Well, it's one point that I would have liked to see more of, but we'll talk about that in a second. The thing that made the experience so terrible was we got really bad seats, which I hate getting. I like being kind of like 3/4 the way up in the center. We weren't able to get that, and that was kind of like, then the person next to us insisted throughout the entire movie of tapping his feet, so the whole row that we were sitting on was shaking violently, and this did not stop. It did not stop. The entire...
Were you sitting next to the Incredible Hulk?
No, Bill, but you don't need to like be Incredible Hulk to make seats. Like the cinema seats are kind of flimsy. They're on like a single sort of like steel rod at the back. So when you like move them back and forth, you like shake.
Okay, maybe the ones in the cinema I tend to go to, there's like they're not a whole rod the whole way along. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, no, these were connected. They were like one big thing,
Okay.
and he would not stop. Like, and both myself and the captain didn't have the courage to like, because we're kind of non-confrontation people. We didn't have the courage to lean over and be like, "Sorry, could you not do that?" So we just kind of sucked it up and rocked back and forwards like sporadically for the entire screening. And then the person in front of us insisted on being on their phone the entire way through the thing. So I know. So there's a luminous blue glow happening, and you'd be watching the film, and then you're kind of like every so often you'd like look down and be like, "Oh, phone, sorry, no, keep looking at the screen. Oh, phone, no," and it's just the whole thing was terrible, and it wasn't enjoyable, but the film was really good. The only criticism I would have of the film is that the music was just bleh. It was just completely meh. And given that you're dealing with African themes here, like there is a wealth of interesting music that you could have pumped into that film. And I think there was one bit of music that was kind of African inspired. And that was it. And the rest of it was kind of generic, sort of Marvel-esque sort of cinematic music. And I was like, come on, you totally missed a trick there. Like pump it full of this interesting African music. We we had lectures on this in college, Bill, like with all its intense like polyrhythms and wonderful polyphony, and like really go to town on that to help paint the sort of like musical narrative of this world. It's like nope, regular boring forgettable Marvel cinematic music, and I was like that was a major problem.
Yeah, I don't remember the music in the film making that much impact on me. Although the bit where they were in the club in Korea, I recognized the artist that was playing at one point there, or when they're in the casino. I'm just going to check who that was for a second.
I think the fact that you were like the music. Sorry.
No, after you.
I think the fact that you were like the music didn't leave an impression on me kind of sort of vindicates my point of view. Like if they had pumped it full of African inspired music, like you couldn't not be left with an impression of that music because we don't experience it that often in our culture. So the fact that you didn't really notice the music all that much kind of means that it was generic sort of bland music, and that's no good.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't tend to pay that much attention to music in films, not consciously, like. But I do know that the soundtrack, like the soundtrack album, was curated by Kendrick Lamar, and there's some really really good acts on it. Now maybe they weren't used, or maybe they actually made bad stuff, but maybe it wasn't used in the film because it's got really good people. It's got like it's Kendrick, who's amazing. It's got SZA, who I'm a big fan of.
Right, but like I want African music. Like Kendrick's great, like, but I don't want Kendrick's music. I want African music. I want them to go and send a team of composers or whatever to Africa to study the music and then emulate that in the film.
Or get an African person to write the music.
Or get an
African better.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want good Western like hip hop, rap, that sort of music. I want African music. Because do you remember in college we had that lecture from by Shima Aram?
I certainly do.
And he for the listeners, he gave a lecture on the counterpunktal music of pygmy tribes. Which
yes.
I remember at the time being like, is that an offensive word? So I'm hesitant.
I'm still kind of wondering that. Yeah, the Aka were the people.
Right. Okay. Now, so I'm hesitant to use that word, but the speaker used that word, so I don't know. I've no expertise in this at all. But in any case, he talked a lot about his research into this music and played a lot of examples. And holy God, was it just magnificent! Like, and they they have counterpoint. I realize, Bill, you know about all this, but for the listener, they have counterpoint like almost built into their like cultural DNA. Like they naturally will perform like really complex musical works that would for our Western abilities would require actual composition, but they'll just improv it, and it's just beautiful. And I couldn't believe how wonderful it sounded, and I just wish there was more of that.
Yeah.
But that was my only drawback from the film. I thought overall it was quite good. Yeah.
I mean, that's true. That seems in fitting with some of the other reception I've seen of the film. That it isn't African; it's an American image of Africa.
It's a hyper-real simulacra.
Yes.
Okay, I need to clarify. For the listener,
an in-joke there.
That's a bit of an in-joke. Bill and I listened to this podcast called Blind Boy Boat Club. We've mentioned it before in the thing. And one of the things that this guy talks about a lot in the podcast is this idea of a hyper-real simulacra. And a good example that he gives to explain this is the phenomenon of the Irish pub, and how you can go around the world in any country and you will always find an Irish bar. But like none of these Irish bars are like bars in Ireland. It's like people who don't live in Ireland and don't experience the culture, kind of their sort of like fantastical hyperbolic views of what it is to be Irish has been pumped into this notion of the Irish pub. And that's basically what a hyperreal simulacra is. So the Black Panther could be seen as that, because it's kind of like a load of Westerners have their preconceived notions about what African culture is, and then they present this thing, which is inspired by African culture, I suppose, but isn't African culture. It's a hyperreal simulacra of African culture. And I love that word. I've been using that word. I've been using that phrase everywhere. And people think I'm just a big obnoxious hipster when I use that. I love
it. Yeah, no, 'cause that's definitely some of the reception that I've seen from African people who've seen it. It's a great film, but it is an American kind of fantasy of Africa. Mm-hmm. And, you know, whether that's a good or a bad thing isn't for me to say. It is a fantasy universe.
Yeah, and then even if, like, okay, let's assume that it's not a bad thing, right? And it's up for debate, but let's assume it's not a bad thing. I still think, though, that even an American interpretation of what African music is would have been better than generic Marvel music, because it would have helped at least paint a better picture of like African life. Maybe not 100% correct, but certainly better than generic superhero music. But like that's a minor distraction. I thought the movie was great. It was really fun. I usually don't like superhero movies at all, really, but I thought this was really cool.
About the Irish pub thing, someone was telling me last or a week or two ago, there's a podcast, I think it's the Irish Passport podcast, and they did an episode about the phenomenon of the Irish pub, and how there's a company based in Ireland that will give you the materials set up to set up an Irish pub, and you can decide what you want it to be like. Do you want it to be like an old rural hyperreal simulacrum of an Irish pub, or do you want it to be like, you know, kind of a music pub? And so someone anywhere in the world can say, I think I'll open an Irish pub, and they'll apply to this company, and they can buy the materials necessary to set it up, and they'll help you get like the correct beers and things.
I'm pretty sure that company is Guinness. At least I think Blind Boy mentions that it's Guinness that does that. You can apply to Guinness, or at least historically you could do it.
Maybe. That was not the impression I got from. But then I haven't actually listened to this podcast. But yeah, I just think that's really funny. So like there's no actual connection to Ireland in a lot of cases. There's no necessity for one.
Yeah, and it's like, it's kind of weird because it's kind of sort of cultural appropriation, but like you feel bad using that term because, you know, like, you know, oh great, you want to culturally appropriate Irishness, like, oh, woe be upon us, you know? But it is kind of weird, like when as an Irish person you do walk into like an Irish bar in, I don't know, let's say Thailand. It's a very weird situation. Like I never go to Irish bars, and I don't understand people who go to Irish bars who are Irish. I don't get the appeal of that. Yeah, it's a weird thing.
I went to one when I was in Amsterdam, just because it was the only like decent looking place like that I had time to get to before my train. Or whatever, for whatever kind of scheduling reason, but I wasn't happy about it.
Yeah, like I much prefer. I appreciate you had time constraints and stuff, but I much prefer if you're an Irish person abroad, going and like, trying to experience local culture. You know,
Yeah.
like you're in Ireland all the time. Like, why continue with this abroad? Like, it makes no sense to me. Speaking of going abroad, Bill, I am going on holidays.
Where are you going to?
I am going to go, hopefully, all going well and budgeting and things like that. I am going to go with the captain to Morocco.
Oh, class.
Yeah, we've never been to Africa, neither of us. So we were kind of like, it'd be really interesting to see a little bit of Africa. And Morocco is a fairly cheap place to get to. It's not ridiculously expensive. And if you go in the off season, it's quite good. And Morocco looks really, really interesting. And there seems to be a lot of really awesome places, and places I expect that when I come back I'll have some world building fodder to talk about. There's a place called Sejant, I can't pronounce it, and it's essentially like a blue town. Everything is blue, like all the buildings are like blue, and I believe this is one of the reasons why this is so is because of like insect repellent. Like apparently the insects don't like the blue or whatever. But I'm going to do a little more reading on it before I go and check it out and report back to you with interesting world building details.
Class.
So yeah, I really like the way when we do go on travels that every so often we do have world building fodder to talk about. I think that's really cool. It's like it's a very unique sort of travel blog. Travel with a view on creating fiction. But yeah, so that's pretty much all that's going on in my life. I could talk some more about the Kindle, but it's not that interesting. I suppose the only thing I was going to say was that I think the Kindle is a horrific looking device. But
What Kindle did you get?
I got the captain's Kindle, which I had found out was actually the Kindle I had bought her. I forgot about that. So I bought her a gift. She stopped using it, and now I'm getting it back. Is essentially what's happening. So I think it's a Kindle 4, 5. I can't remember. Some Kindle.
Is it one of the do you tap the screen to turn pages?
You tap the screen. There's no buttons.
There's no buttons.
No buttons on it. It's a black device. There's no buttons. Yeah, I'll leave a picture in the show notes, whatever.
Yeah, I really like mine.
I mean, I like the idea of the Kindle, but Jesus, their industrial design isn't great. Now, this is like perhaps going to get me labeled as an Apple, but like, I really do enjoy kind of pretty looking devices, and they're not pretty. Like they really are. Like it's a big hunk of black plastic, that's not really. Doesn't have a great like aesthetic to it, but again, it's not about the aesthetic; it's about the reading, and I look forward to being able to experience books on it.
I have a really nice cover for mine, that it's got some kind of magnetic lock on it, so it kind of closes. It snaps closed quite satisfyingly, and then when you open it, it automatically turns the Kindle on.
Oh,
yeah, which I really like, and it makes it look a lot nicer as well. Now it was like. It was fairly expensive for what it was. It was like 30 or 40 quid or something. But I've had it for a couple of years now, and it's kept my Kindle safe. And it really adds to the bookishness of the experience that I just open it up, and then you don't have to press a button to power it on. So it's I feel it was a good investment for a couple of years at this stage of just like a low level improvement to my experience.
The captain had a similar sort of thing. It didn't have an automatic turn on, but it was shaped like a book, this case. And I immediately got rid of the case. I am so against cases. I despise cases on everything. I never have cases. I never have cases on my phone. I don't put cases on laptops. I think people who put cases on laptops I don't understand them. More power to you, but I just don't understand it. I really like looking at the thing as it was intended, and I am totally willing to sacrifice practicality and perhaps damage for it. Yeah. But I don't damage things that often because, like again, I have never put a case on a phone, and I've never once broken the back of a phone or smashed the screen or anything. Like I'm quite, I don't know, I feel almost like if you put a case on a thing, this is more to do with the phone than the Kindle. It almost inspires you to be rougher with it because you're like, it's fine, I have a case on it. Whereas if you don't have a case, you're kind of like, I need to be a little bit more careful about this, and I think it leads to better behavior, at least in me.
Look at the one I have sometime, and I'd be curious to see whether it carries, because it's very, very low impact. It's very, very slim, and I think it improves the shape, I think.
Yeah, perhaps. But I think the Kindle maybe needs shape improvement. I'm sorry. I'm totally going to get shouted at for being the Apple despite the thing at the top of the show.
No, you want to have a positive association with the items you use. I think it's not unreasonable.
Yeah, and I really like the aesthetic of there being tech. Like I have my lenses all lined up in front of me here and my cameras, and I really like looking at them as like artifacts. Like I think I'm really into like the industrial design sort of thing, and like pretty industrial design is very interesting to me. Now I will say, just for the sake of it, this is not limited to Apple. Before someone shouts at me, because like the window, the Surface computers, I think the Surface computers look great. Those Microsoft Surface computers, I think they look really, really, really slick. I think some Dell monitors, those Infinity display monitors, they look amazing. Like they're just as an artifact, they look stunning. So it's not just Apple. Like I would not be a person that would say Apple is the only company that can make decent industrial design. It's just not true. I will say the Amazon Echo, good industrial design. I like it. It looks decent. So yeah, there you go. Sorry, industrial design. That's me done. Oh, can I complain about? I want to complain really quickly before we end about Duolingo and German.
Please do.
I've gotten bored with gaming recently. You know, where you hit the wall with gaming, you're kind of like, I don't want to game anymore. And you find something else to do. And Duolingo has replaced gaming. And now when I'm bored, I Duolingo. So I Duolingoed some German because it's not that tedious for me to learn because I know most of it. And it's just kind of a thing to do when I'm bored. And hopefully I might pick up something new. And it's going great. The only problem is I think Duolingo is a little bit broken.
Why's that?
In that, like, at least on the because I'm doing it on the desktop, right? The web app has a thing where they list all the words you've learned, and then they like rate them on 1 to 5 based on how recently you've practiced them.
Okay.
And no matter how much I practice on Duolingo, it will not serve me up the words that need practicing. So like the one that sticks in my mind is the word wind for wind. It has been on like low, like a 1 bar health for ages, and I'm there mashing the practice button, like doing insane amount of practice a day, and it will not serve me up the word wind. And it's really annoying because as a completionist, I want to have everything at full power, and everything is practiced, and I can't, and it's very irritating. Very irritating. And another thing that irritates me really quickly is that they have this thing whereby you know the way it's broken up into little kind of subjects.
Yeah.
And you need to clear the subjects before moving on to the next set of subjects. So they've introduced this thing whereby you can clear a subject, but you can also go back and do that subject at a higher level.
Cool.
And it goes up to like level 5 on each subject. And again, I'm a completionist, so I want to get everything to level 5. And I swear to God, man, I've been doing phrases, like German phrases, like Hallo, Willkommen, Genau, Alles klar. I've been doing that for days. Getting to level 5 on that involves like I think it must be maybe like 100 or maybe less than 100, maybe 80 or so run passes through that thing, and no one needs 80 goes to get Hallo, Willkommen, Guten Morgen, Guten Tag. Like even if you don't know German, you get that after like 10. You know, and it's just it annoys me because I want to complete everything, and I can just see like the dative case taking me 200 times to clear, and it's just like, oh no, I think you've gauged this wrong, Duolingo. But that's just me.
That's still fairly new, so maybe they're still refining the different levels in each subject part.
Oh, and their Klingon is terrible.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's in beta, so it is kind of terrible.
Right.
And it's I had a go at it and was kind of like, oh, this is very difficult. It's very hard to even get into this. Like, there's no easy learning curve here. I wonder if it's the same for High Valerian. I haven't checked it out yet. I want to clear German first. But anyway, there you go. Duolingo complaints. Anything else before we shut up shop?
That's me. I think that's everything I had to say.
Listen, come here. Will you take care of yourself? And I hope you get better soon.
I will do my best.
Cool. I will see you next month sometime.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. Bill, see you next time. Until
See you
next
later.
time,
Edgar
out.